The ayes are 116, noes are 3. Part 1 as amended will stand part. The question now is that Part 2 stand part. Those of that opinion... Are you seeking a call?
Yes, Mr Chair.
Carmel Cebalona.
Mr Chair, standing to speak to Part 2. Mr Quinn telling me to stick to the program. We'll get with the program. I think Mr Quinn should look in the mirror, actually. Mr Chair, I'm speaking to the Education Amendment Bill number 4 and speaking to Part 2, which is transitional arrangements and amendments to other enactments, Mr Speaker, which is what Part 2 is about. So basically what we have here when we're looking at the bill, Mr Speaker, overall, and then I'll go into more detail just to put it into context, we know that the bill seeks to amend the Education Act. It includes provisions concerned with 3 broad policy areas. The bill would strengthen the regulation of the tertiary education system by improving and modernising the New Zealand Qualifications Authority's legal arrangements. So that is the intention. It would facilitate the expansion of international education in New Zealand by establishing Education New Zealand as a Crown agency and would safeguard the quality and reputation of New Zealand education system by updating and strengthening the New Zealand Qualification Authority's compliance and enforcement regime. And we know from some of the things that have occurred in recent times with respect to some of the qualifications that have been offered, some of the unfortunate experiences that have been had by international students here, coming here expecting a standard of education or to go into courses that are made up of particular aspects or concentrated on particular areas that there have been issues there. So we do support the establishment of this Crown agency to ensure that the quality of our New Zealand education system is upheld. We do appreciate on this side of the House, in fact I'm sure that all of us do as parliamentarians, the importance of that, the international student market and the fact that it is something that many of our institutions and also schools are looking to expand, Mr Chair. So we do see the Crown Agency as an important agency with respect to ensuring that not only we safeguard the quality but also grow that international student market. We see it as something that will increase transparency and accountability in the tertiary education system regarding compulsory student services fees, student loans and allowances. The compulsory student services fees section of this bill, Mr Speaker, is something that we also that we've discussed in detail. And Mr Speaker, when we look at Part 2 and we look at the transitional arrangements, it really is fairly straightforward. There's very little that we can comment on. The amendments to the enactments are a necessary component of any piece of legislation like that in terms of outlining what enactments will be amended, Mr Speaker. As I've said, we support wholeheartedly the Crown Agency with respect to what that means for our international student market, Mr Speaker. So at that, I will leave it at that, Mr Speaker, and I'm sure that people on our side of the House have calls and points that they wish to make. So thank you very much, Mr Chair. Sorry.
Mr Chair.
The question is...
Mr Chair.
Oh.